Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Square Ball podcast, powered by William Hill and co-hosted by myself, Dave McIntyre, and Lee Keegan. We've managed to get to episode 6, which is a blessing. We're pretty proud of what we've done so far. If you haven't listened to it, we've had really good chats with the likes of Sean Kavanagh, Darren O'Sullivan, Pádraig Maher, Aisling Thompson, and who have I left out there? Keith Higgins.
Keith, of all people,
your former colleague in the trenches, yeah. So there were some brilliant insights into their life and their career and the highs and lows on and off the field. So do get into the bank and have a look at those ones. You can either watch them on YouTube, where you can also leave a comment, or you can contact us via any of William Hill's social channels. We will also be bringing you these podcasts wherever you get your pods, if you want to be listening to them up and down the road, wherever you are and wherever you get your podcasts. So stick with us. We've got an awful lot more to come in the weeks ahead. Really looking forward to today's episode. We've got the great Conor McManus, Monaghan legend. Is he still a Monaghan intercounty footballer? We don't know that yet. It's certainly a question we think is going to come up over the next hour or so. But we are recording the week after the weekend that was, when the All-Ireland champions Dublin were dumped out of the Senior Football Championship. No one saw that one coming.
Didn't see it at halftime either, Dave, to be honest. It was all too comfortable, and then it didn't become comfortable, unfortunately. And like, as much as we want to go on with Dublin, I think a lot has to go towards Pádraig Joyce and his troops and how they turned around in the second half. And they have blown the championship wide open. If you're one of those four teams now, because I think sometimes we do get obsessed with Dublin because they're so good. Not seeing Dublin in the picture just has given everyone this optimistic hope that there is an All-Ireland here this year that we could grab. And the four teams you look at will see that as a prime opportunity.
First time since 2009 Dublin haven't been in an All-Ireland semi-final.
They wait till we left.
But that, when you put it in those terms, it does have an end of an era feel to it. There were some that tried to paint the 21 semi-final defeat to Mayo in those terms. I didn't buy it at the time. I still felt Dublin were a reasonably young team. They still had some brilliant players that were of a very good age, and they also didn't have the likes of Mannion and McCaffrey and Cluxton, who we felt probably had one more say in a Dublin jersey, and they obviously did all come back. Yeah. I don't think there's a similar feel to it this time around. I think this could be it.
See, I think last year there was such emotion post All-Ireland. I don't think I've seen Dublin celebrate in that manner before, and it felt like that was the one they really craved. And beating Kerry was huge. So there is something different about the last day. Listen, again, you don't want to preempt certain things, but they're never going to be able to produce what they've had through the past 10, 12 years. They're just irreplaceable figures. Even after the 17 group, to still produce what they had is a testament. Looking now down the track, they just don't seem to have that pedigree of players that they once had. I still think they're going to be thereabouts, but I think we're not going to be talking them as the dominant figure that they have been. I just think what they've done over the last decade will never be matched or done again. So I think it's going to be an exciting few years for teams to realise now there's a huge market now to grab an All-Ireland title, and teams are going to... I think this year is going to give them that kind of focus, and the next 4, 5, 6 years are going to be really interesting for these teams who can catch and grab onto it. Given
the improvement the likes of Galway, Donegal, Armagh have made in the last 12 months, I'm already looking forward to the 2025 championship, because Dublin won't be... You would feel they'd be unlikely to be better than they were this year, particularly if some of the most big names like Cluxton, Fitzsimons, McCarthy, if they step away. And you've got all these other counties now that will feel they were just in that blanket of counties right below Dublin. If a team other than Kerry wins this All-Ireland, that'll be 4 different winners in 4 years. When is the last time we were in that situation? You have to go back to the 90s.
But it's funny enough, I think if the likes of those guys stay in for Dublin, I still think it's an opportunity because of the mileage those guys had. And in some quarters, and they're the greatest players they ever played, they were kind of caught out at the weekend because time waits for no man. So, but in saying that, like, the Donegal profile is magnificent. Galway, like, their depth in squad is just... And if they can get their injuries cleared up, like, you're talking about a team that could potentially win multiple All-Irelands. Armagh, really up and coming. Pressure into now to deliver a trophy, I think, and Kieran McGinn, he's there a long time. So, but they're really fresh groups. And looking down the track at those teams, they're only going to get better. And I think their optimism and hope is going to start really burning bright, I think, in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And 2025 is going to tell us a big story.
Yeah, as painful as it might be, speaking as a Dub, to acknowledge that this era of dominance is over. It's brilliant for the championship, and anybody who wasn't from Dublin, anyone from all of the other 31 counties watching last weekend would have been hoping for a result like that. It's brilliant for this year's championship and the years to come.
I think, again, Dublin have just been awesome. I think people need to appreciate what they have done, though. I know it's killed us and killed teams' hope over the last decade, but to do what they've done is a testament to the group of players they've had. And as someone said, that 93 baby club that came through are the most freakish group they've ever had. So it's exciting times for championship. I
remember a great line from Ger Canning in the closing seconds of the 1992 All-Ireland football final when Donegal beat Dublin. And Ger said something along, I'm paraphrasing here, it's a victory that will give hope to so many counties around Ireland. I think that's what that Galway win was.
Yeah.
Not just this year, it'll give hope to counties all over the country that even in Leinster, that maybe Dublin are not the absolute dominant force they have been for 20 years at this stage. So, yeah, if you're not from Dublin, maybe there's a lot of positivity, a lot of hope out there. You said a moment ago, time waits for no man. Not even the greats of the game, not even the legendary figures in the game. Time will catch up with them eventually. And that's probably relevant to our next guest. We are today here for the Conor McManus episode of the Square Ball podcast. So delighted to say we are joined by 3-time All-Star, 2-time Ulster Senior Football Championship medalist, 4-time international rules star. It is one of the greats of Monaghan and intercounty football, Conor McManus. Conor, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
So let's just get to it. Should we refer to you as a current or former Monaghan footballer?
Straight to the gill.
Yeah, I was in Salt Hill last week. You were very emotional at the end.
Yeah.
And you had the look of a man who thought this is me done.
Yeah, but funny, it's obviously when you're getting ready for a last 12 of the All Ireland series, you're not thinking about retirement or not thinking about any of that. You're thinking about winning the game and getting to Croke Park the following week. So it certainly wasn't in my head in any way, shape or form coming into the game. And after the game, the usual, young kids come on for photos and autographs and bits and pieces. But I suppose the bit that was slightly different this time was that there was a lot of Monaghan supporters, older Monaghan supporters, men and women, sort of just come up and sort of shook my hand and sort of thank you for your years and thanks for your service and that sort of stuff. And it just kept coming and I just sort of maybe got a wee bit on top of me. I'm not too sure. It's not that I never said anything. I still haven't sort of officially made my mind up, I suppose.
It felt different though. It looked different.
Yeah, well, it probably is. It probably is. There's no two ways in getting away from that. But it was different because after any other game, no Monaghan people or even Galway people or different ones were coming up. Thanks for your years and thanks for this and that. And I suppose that's probably what got me a wee bit more than that normally doesn't happen. And I suppose maybe they're anticipating that I probably will. And I just felt that after the game on Saturday wasn't the time for me to be talking about myself or anything like that. So.
I think as neutrals and fans though, I think we have a deep appreciation for what you've done. I think there's that kind of element too, because you don't get someone like a generational type player like yourself, well, and someone that I suppose we're all making the assumption.
Yeah, and it's probably not 100 miles away, to be fair. My intention is just to get back into the club. We have a couple of big games coming up with the club over the next couple of weeks, and obviously the championship will start then, and I'll throw my lot into that, and when the dust settles on that, we'll take stock and we'll do something, because I probably in my own head I'll want to put it to bed as well as much as anything else. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to drive.
Is it more likely than not though that we won't see you again?
No, I can't see it.
Because I felt when you left the field after the All Ireland semi final last year, I maybe you don't remember it in these terms, but I thought you were lingering as well. You were kind of looking around Croke Park, thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to get to play here again, and there was a sense that maybe
Dave's only waiting to call you has been as well, like he's called every other.
It turns out we were right, but like you still gave it another good rattle this year. But I thought, I'm not sure we're going to see him again in a Monaghan jersey. And then when you decided to come back again, I certainly felt this was your last year. And I was in Salt Hill a couple of weeks ago, and clearly it's not a decision you want to be able to telling to the media and to Monaghan supporters after the game, but I find it very difficult to see you in a Monaghan jersey next year.
Yeah, you're probably right. There's no point in denying it. I'm probably this last couple of years have been frustrating for me as much as anything else, because you're so used to being able to give everything you have for so long, and starting games, finishing games, and it's got to a stage where, not so much even in games, but even in trainings, you're not fit to do full training sessions. You're tailoring your sessions. You're doing a lot of off-feet conditioning.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was looking at your numbers during the week. You've started 3 of Monaghan's last 11 championship games.
Yeah.
Now, for someone around whom the entire Monaghan attack was built for 15 years, that must be extremely difficult.
I didn't even know that, to be honest with you. I didn't even know that. But yeah, no, it's definitely different, and it's not how you want to be. Obviously, as a player, you want to be playing, you want to be starting, and that's the bottom line, you know. I suppose last year, the way the year went, last year was the first year that I didn't start. I started the Ulster Championship last year, and I started the Ulster semi-final, and then in the round robin I had a bit of a knock with my hip in between that, and I didn't start a couple of the round robin games in the championship last year, and then that sort of fed on into the championship. Now I started the semi-final all right, but the way last year finished, you know, we'd got to a semi-final. You had gotten so close, you figured and you fancied that we could build on this, we could layer up on this again, get a couple of young lads into the squad here and go again. And that's probably what drew me back this year, is that, you know, the belief and that temptation to say, right, we can get back to Croke Park, we can get back to the bigger days and maybe push it one step further than we did last year. And then I suppose it hasn't turned out that way, it hasn't worked out that way for one reason or another.
So that's why people will be even more quick to to retire you now, because you're a year older. The hip problem's not going to go away. You're not starting. Darren Hughes has picked up a really bad injury. We're not going to retire Darren in this studio today, but I'd be surprised to see Darren back in a Monaghan jersey. Carl O'Connell's now in his mid-30s.
Yeah.
Kieran Duffy struggled with injury all season.
Yeah.
Ryan Wiley's another year older.
Yeah.
You're starting in Division 2. You know, a bad Division 2 campaign, and you're going to be playing Tailteann Cup in next year's championship. This is obviously all doomsday, worst case scenario.
Yeah, you're painting a very bright picture here.
From a Monaghan fan's perspective.
Yeah.
But it does feel like it's a Monaghan squad and a Monaghan inter-county setup that is entering a period of transition.
Listen, you could argue that, like, what you've said are all true. It's all true. Like, you know, there are a number of players who have probably emptied out for Monaghan and given as much as they possibly can give, you know. And again, I can't sit here and speak for Darren or Carl. To be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if either of them boys were back in a Monaghan jersey next year. It's just the way they're built. Yeah.
Carl O'Connell's still as fast as he was.
As fast as he was.
But he was a late comer as well.
He was a late comer, yeah. But the way I would say it for them two boys is they're like, hopefully Darren's injury obviously clears up and he gets back. Hopefully he'll get back playing club championship and see if he can get through that in any way, shape or form. I wouldn't rule him out for next year. And Carl the same. Now again, them boys have obviously got families and they have to make that decision themselves. If they did step away, nobody could question what they've given to Monaghan football. And the few of the points you've made, yes, there are some of our lads coming towards the end of their careers and you know, starting, but
that was a golden generation you had.
Yeah.
Of players I'm talking that came through at a real critical time for Monaghan.
Yeah. There's a real core of players there that just gave absolutely everything that they could, you know what I mean? And I suppose that's you know, that's something that I would have seen when I came into the Monaghan squad, that the boys before me did the same, you know what I mean? Yeah. They went to the well until the
Lots
well
of Desi Moan and Dick Clerk and Dick, Owen Lennon,
Vinnie
Paul
Corey,
Finlay,
Owen Lennon,
kept
Paul
going.
Finlay, you know, them boys just kept going until there was nothing left more to give. And I suppose it's come to our stage now, and we feel it's the right thing to do is do the same, you know what I mean?
It's an interesting one. I want to ask you this, Lee. After the game in Salt Hill a couple of weeks ago, Conor said, I owe Monaghan everything. I can't think, that's why I want to ask Lee, because this might embarrass you a little. I can't think of a single inter-county footballer or hurler who owes less to his county than Conor over the last 100 years.
I agree.
They've wrung every last bit of juice out of you.
Well, they have, but you got to realise he emptied himself for that as well. So
yeah,
although they were juice out of him, but he's
Monaghan owe you nothing.
No, nothing. No.
No, well, I don't know. Like, the way I would have seen it was like the chance to play for Monaghan and the opportunity to play for Monaghan this last 18 years has been absolutely my privilege. Like, the chance to go and represent Monaghan in Ulster finals, to play for Monaghan in Croke Park, to play for Monaghan against the Dubs in All-Ireland semi-finals, that, like, to me, that has given me some of the best days of my life, you know. And if you were asked to rewind the clock and go back and do another 18 years of it, you start the clock.
Because Conor McManus is not the same Conor McManus, because I know where he's coming from the aspect, like, he's the person he is because of Monaghan too. And that's why I
it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. Like, you know, people, they take their pound of flesh, and I agree with that, but, you know, he's sitting here today and we have the privilege of having him because of what he's done for Monaghan, but he doesn't get selected unless Monaghan bring him in and nurture him into the player he is too, like, you know. So
100%. So yeah, no, I would say definitely I owe Monaghan a lot, you know, in terms of been given the opportunity to play for Monaghan, and obviously the players that I've been playing with and the players that I've been able to go to soldier with this last 10, 15, 18 years, whatever it is, you know, like that's the best days of your life. Like, they're the days you look back on, and no matter who you talk to over the last 2 or 3, 4 years, you know, as you know, as you're ticking on towards making that decision or coming to the end of it, everybody will always say to you, there's no replacing playing football. Like, you know, there's the opportunity to play. You can go into management, you can go into coaching, you can go off and do your own thing, but there's no replacing playing for your county. Like,
every guest has had the same answer nearly.
Yeah.
Even some playing, like, they're just the buzz of playing.
Yeah.
Once you're retired, you're retired.
That's
Unless
it.
you're Stephen Cluxon or Jack McCaffrey or Paul Mannion.
Well, he could be 43 and still sitting
which
here.
I certainly am not.
If Vinnie Corey hadn't replaced Seamus McEnany in 2022, do you think you might be done before now?
Possibly.
Very
yeah.
hard to say no to him.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. Yeah, because the reality is you were coming towards the end, and as you mentioned, like, the hip issue and that there wasn't going to get any better. Now I've managed to get 2 years out of it.
Talk to us about the gravity of the hip problem.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm also conscious that every time I speak, I end up talking about this damn hip.
But you're 37 in November.
Yeah.
Do you feel 37, or do you feel a man years older than that?
I don't know.
Probably
But
after a match.
I actually honestly don't know what it feels like not to be sore, you know, anymore. You know, because it's that long since you've been pain free. That
Are you sore just getting out of bed in the morning?
Not all the time, but a lot of the time. A lot of the time you would.
Which
be,
a 37-year-old man shouldn't be saying.
No, but it is what it is. It is what
But
it
you've
is.
had this from a young age, though.
Yeah,
So
like
it's
I had surgery on this hip first off when I was 22 years of age, like, and I actually went to End the King in Santry in 2013. I actually hurt it in the 2013 game against Tyrone, and
which we'll get to, don't worry.
wasn't that incident, actually. It was totally separate, but I heard it after that, and Malachy actually sent me up to Santry to End the King, who he would have managed when he was with Cavan Gales, and to say that he would have extended my career by 10 or 15 years would be an understatement. He was absolutely brilliant, you know.
In terms of the operation itself?
No,
or just
I had the operation,
in
but
terms
just
of
in terms of the rehab,
Okay.
in terms of just
management of
getting
it.
to know and
Yeah.
how to use your hip and how to manage it. And the way he put it to me then was, he says, you have €100 to spend with your hip, and he says, it's up to you how you spend it. You can manage it and you get the full €100 out of it, or you can blow it all out in the next 2 or 3 years and you'll become a cropper, you know. So I'd say I possibly have 99.50 spent at this
So
stage.
it's funny because you're saying you're back with the club, and how are you feeling with the club then? Is it
Yeah, well, again, it's much the same. It's
same,
just
yeah.
managing it.
Yeah.
You know, like, you want to be out there doing as much as you can and train as much as you can, but the reality is you just don't, and you can't.
Yeah.
So you just manage it, and you pick your battles. There's some days, and for some reason or another, the hip is feeling bad or sore on any given day. You just have to listen to it and take a step back. There's other days it feels good, and you just proceed, you know.
so
Do you think you'll need a hip replacement in the next decade?
Oh yeah, 100%. It'll be sooner than a decade.
Which is a big price to pay, isn't it? For everything you've got out of your intercounty career, all the memories, the medals, the accolades, it's a big price.
Yeah, it probably is. It probably is. Now, listen, again, I'm also conscious that hips can be replaced, and that's, you know, we're at a stage now where it's not as big a thing as maybe it was.
But Ulster Championship medals can't.
No, well, I'd take you back to what I said there. If somebody asked me to rewind the clock and do it all again, it would be no hesitation, even knowing what's coming and what's down the track. You might have managed it a wee bit better early days or done a few things differently, but no, listen, to get out of what I've got and some of the memories and things like that, I wouldn't change it.
Hindsight's beautiful though. I'd say, you know, when you're younger, you're on a bit. I'd say just the grind and pound. You just want to be stuck in everything.
Yeah.
As the years go on, you start to
100%.
realise, hold on.
And that's probably where the damage was done.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in my, I think maybe when I was 18, the year after county minor, so it was 18. I was 18 going on 19 that year, and I played C football with Clontibbert, B football with Clontibbert, senior football, under 21s. I think I maybe played 50 or 60 games that year, and I wouldn't have been in a gym, I wouldn't even walk through the door of a gym in terms of prehab or rehab or strength and condition, nothing. You know what I mean? Your body was fit to do it, and you just done it.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that probably was the start.
And
of
is
the
it
problems.
your kicking leg?
Kicking leg? Yeah.
So anyone who knows you will know that the field in Clontibbert, which was so close to your house, you were always on it, practicing your frees, swinging the ball over from all sorts of angles. So you might have played between 50 and 60 games one of those years. How many balls did you kick? In days that you weren't?
Probably.
And you don't think of it as 11-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old,
No.
I'm going to kick 50 frees tonight. You don't think this is actually going to cause long-term damage to my hip here.
No, you're not thinking that at all. But again, you didn't have the base of strength and conditioning or rehab or prehab there that's done now. Like, I suppose if I was starting my career now back 18 years ago, if you were starting it all over again and you had the know-how and the knowledge that's available to players now, it would be probably so much different, you know. But yeah, listen, as I say, it is what it is.
Kicking those balls, did you know how many? Because you're still kicking a ball in your head, you know.
Yeah,
so
as I
say one of the finest strikers we've seen, you know.
Yeah. Go back to the beginning. So 2007, you mentioned minors there. You're on this great list of the greatest inter-county team never to have played minor and under 21. Did you play 21?
21,
yeah. Didn't play minor.
I played 21 the following.
I think Berta Brogan's on that same team as you.
Yeah.
Like, what an inside forward line that'd be, Brogan and McManus. If you're going with a two-man full forward line, and maybe that wasn't, not many teams did that around 2007.
Yeah.
But, so you kind of just appear out of nowhere. You play 21s, and then when you make your breakthrough onto the senior team under Banty in 07, you're a wing back.
2007, yeah, sort of bordering between wing forward, wing back. Yeah, it's the easiest position in the field. Look at
You made a career out of it.
He'd be best suited to the way it is now.
Yeah. No, listen, it was probably as much to do with my size and physicality as much as anything else. You know, you were probably obviously good enough on the ball and things like that, but just didn't have the physique to manage yourself inside or win your own ball or things like that. And I suppose playing at number 5 or number 10 allows you that freedom just to come onto the ball and pick your spaces and pick your pockets a wee bit more. And then as I suppose it got physically a bit stronger and I suppose more able to manage yourself, you drifted in there.
So were you a scorer? You would have been Clontibbert's
scorer
in chief at that age?
I was playing full forward,
okay,
centre forward with Clontibbert in 2007 county final, 2008, 2009. I was full
so they're
forward.
protecting you.
Yeah, so I was inside for that whole period of time with Clontibbert. But again, I go back to the strength condition and the gym work and that there. It was nearly alien to you, you know what I mean? So it was only when I sort of got to 21, 22 that this became a feature. Like, you know, obviously it was in with Monaghan at the time. Marty McKinnon in 07 had us in the gym and doing strength conditioning, but it was very much a case of you go to the gym, you lift whatever you lift, and you go back out through the door
Ticking the
again.
box.
And, you know what I mean? So
And the likes of Ricey, Conor Gormley, Francie Bellew, the
wasn't
McMahon
the place.
brothers, these boys are still very much at their peak.
it
It's
wasn't
not
the
no place for a young man like
a
yourself.
19-year-old me.
Stay back at number 5.
If you've seen the pictures of me back then, yeah, definitely, you'd wonder. When you see the photos of yourself back then, you'd wonder how the hell.
Did you see yourself as a corner forward though? When did that really
Well,
start becoming to the fore?
Probably all along. I would
Yeah.
have done, you know what I mean? I would have played in the forward line a lot of the time, sort of half forward, corner forward. When I started out, you know, really young on the 10s, 12s, you were midfield, but I was actually back then, I was maybe bigger for my age, you know, so as I went up through the ranks, I was probably in the forward line more so. And then, as I say, at that senior level, when I came in with the club actually in 2006, we were lucky enough to win the championship in 06 in my first senior year in senior football, and I was sort of between half forward and half back, and more so half forward. But we actually played Cross McGlen in the Ulster Club Championship in the quarter final. We had won the preliminary round game and picked up a couple of injuries, and I ended up going back to number 5, and I was marking Oshie McConville. He was wing forward, I was wing back. So it was sort of, that's where Banty, I suppose, got the idea from.
You draw that game too, don't you?
No, we lost by a
lost the
point.
point, sorry.
Lost by a point, yeah.
Okay.
And played them the following year and lost by a
Alright.
point again. So,
But 07 is your first year at senior as well,
yeah,
with Banty, isn't it?
yeah,
And you
Yeah.
go on to an Ulster final in your first year.
yeah.
It's not a bad first
Yeah,
year.
no, it's not, because Monaghan obviously hadn't been
In the wilderness for
Hadn't-
so long.
hadn't been competing at all. You know what I mean? Hadn't been competing at all, and came on in that Ulster final at half time.
It was 2 points as well. It was a
Yeah,
nail biter.
it was. Yeah, it was one that we definitely had chances to win, but again, probably looking at it now, you probably just weren't ready to get over the line in them games compared to when we did get over the line.
Because you had a very similar experience in the quarter final then. A couple of weeks later, like
Kerry.
this brilliant game against Kerry that I know Mossy Freeman was on fire that year. Like he
Yeah.
was the Conor McManus of the time.
Tommy was an absolute flying
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah.
Tommy was Jesus.
and he had
was,
Kerry on the rack that day.
Oh, big time. We had them. We absolutely had them on the rack, and I suppose it just showed how good that Kerry team was. That they ground out a win. Tomas O'Shea came up and fisted the winner, as we've seen over the years with him so many times.
That closed the game out though.
Yeah.
As you said, like.
But like that team, that 07, that 2010 team were coming up against Tyrone in Ulster, the best Tyrone team that's ever played. You know what I mean? You get out of Ulster and you're knocked out in 07 and 08 by Kerry, one of the best Kerry teams that's ever played. So we were running into two of the best sides ever at that time. You know what I mean? And we didn't manage to get over the line. But as I say, luckily a few years later, Malachy comes in and things change a wee bit then,
Talk to us about Tyrone. I would say that the 4 worst defeats of your career were all to Tyrone. 2010 Ulster final when you never showed up.
Yeah.
When the hype, for the first time since the great Monaghan team of 85 and 88, was really in full flow.
Yeah.
Everyone thought after what had happened 3 years previous, this is Monaghan's time now. They've lost 2 big games at Croker. They've narrowly lost an Ulster final. Today's the day. Never showed up.
Never showed up.
Get to the All-Ireland quarter final in 2013 and 15 off the back of those brilliant Ulster Championship
Yeah.
wins. I don't think you showed up in either of those days
No.
either. If it's my memory, you might disagree. We'll go through them.
18 then again.
And then you should have beaten them in the quarter final, in the semi final in 2018.
No,
Like
100%.
Monaghan's best opportunity of an All Ireland for first All Ireland since 1921.
39 or 21
Like-
or something like that. It's yeah.
They were just
Yeah.
gut wrenchers, every
Yeah,
single
big
one of them.
time,
When I say the word Tyrone to you now, what sort of feelings does that trigger?
He's rubbing the head.
Yeah, can we cut now? Can we,
I know that you had a couple of big championship wins against them
we
over
have,
the years.
yeah, but
The
they're-
Never
stuff,
when the stakes were at the absolute
Yeah.
highest, like
no,
a final.
them defeats
or-
still linger, and that's just it. That's the nature of football. Yeah, we
What
as you
happened in
say,
2010?
2010 we just got completely steamrolled. Like Tyrone had won the All Ireland 1000 in 2008. You know, they had a bad year in 2009, and a bad year for them was being beaten in All Ireland semi final by Cork. You know, and we had steamrolled our way through the Ulster Championship in 2010, and we're going into that game as complete
favourites.
complete favourites, nailed on favourites.
Did that suit you?
It didn't suit us, but it suited Tyrone down to the ground. Whatever, but us
Siege
not suiting
mentality.
us, it just suited them down to the ground, you know, and they just completely steamrolled us. We went out with a very attacking game plan that day, and they sat back, took the ball off us, and just countered us, you know, and it was game over early doors, like so. But I would say we were again better placed in 2013 and 2015 to beat them, and again in 2018. They're the ones that would sting more. The 2013 one.
I think you were spooked that day, were you? Because I remember thinking going into that game, I think I'd commentated on that quarter final, because that was obviously the Sean Kavanagh tackle, that you had come off this colossal high, hadn't won an Ulster Championship since '88. You beat Donegal in this epic afternoon in a packed house in front of your home support. And I remember Owen Lennon lifting the Anglo-Cell Cup and the celebrations afterwards. And I just thought to myself, when the draw was made following the 4th round of the qualifiers and you got Tyrone, I just thought these lads are sitting ducks now, because Croke Park is going to be half empty, which it was.
Yeah,
Terrible atmosphere.
yeah.
And this is a Tyrone team. They've been winning these games at Croke Park for the best part of it.
Grinding them out for
I
a
thought
decade,
you
yeah.
were in a really bad spot going into that game.
Yeah. And being honest, when that game was over, because the way the year had went and everything else, we were absolutely gutted, because we had, as you say, we were on that high and you were looking to carry that momentum through. But I suppose having won the Ulster Championship for the first time in 25 years, you're nearly in a way you console yourself with the fact that we have this.
You could write that one off.
Yeah, but the 2015 one, that was one where after when we lost the Ulster final in 14, we got back in 15, won it, and you were ready to kick on again. And that's when you really felt, right, we've vindicated ourselves here. We're at this level. This is where we belong now. And that was a stinger. Like that was one that hurt now, because that was an opportunity to kick on, and we had the team to kick on. Like, you know,
when the draws made for the quarter final in 2015 and Tyrone come out of the hat again, is there a part of you guys that's like, brilliant, we get another crack at these lads?
No,
or some of you thinking, oh, for
no,
it's
it's get a crack at these guys.
Absolutely,
like, you felt as if you were good enough. There's many a time when we played Tyrone over the years, and you weren't good enough, and you maybe in the back of your head you knew you weren't good enough, but you felt you were good enough to win that game.
Especially in 13, you've made the crossing of provincial. Okay, 14 you get back there, but now you're primed because you're in a really good position.
Yeah, and we had got ourselves into Division 1 as well.
Yeah.
That we had maybe got to the semi-final of the Division 1 league that year as well. So you were at that you were at that level, and it was an opportunity to kick on, win a big game.
So what happened that day? Because it was right there going into the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And they knew how to win and you guys didn't.
No, and that's, I suppose, it's the harsh reality of it. We didn't, and it took us a while to go and get a big win in Croke Park, you know. But that's the reality of it. We didn't do it.
It's a similar story to 18 as well.
18 was a game.
Funny game though.
We were right into to the last minute or two. Like, it was a game that finished 13-12, I think it was, or 14-13, whatever it was. Like, you 100%, like, whatever with that game in 15 where it was sort of over with the last 3 or 4 minutes to go. This game was right there, and just a couple of bad decisions and a couple of
the McGeary goal was a sucker punch.
On a block, like, we had that dealt with the threat of that, blocked it, and it just falls to his feet, and he rifles into the net. And a goal in that game was always going to be a massive play. Like, I believe if we had managed to keep that out, or even if that had went over the bar, you probably would have won the game, you know.
Talk to us about the feeling of devastation at the full-time whistle.
Yeah, listen, it's
because Monaghan fans are already booking their accommodation for the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, it's a bitter one that now, the 18 and even 23. When you're at that stage of the championship, you're convinced that there's only 4 teams left. You're one of the 4 teams that can win this thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's the, and obviously maybe people on the outside maybe don't think that or don't see that, but as a group, you're fully convinced that you're here.
I told you this before the show. It's your mentality in the semi-final. It's just mad, like, Joe. Because you're right. You only see 4 teams.
Yeah.
Because I remember the group's devastation after that game. I was at the game. I remember working at it, but I could see. I felt you seen it as an absolute lost opportunity. It really looks gut-wrenching.
Yeah, because we had fought for so long to get it. We're after to cover in them couple of quarterfinals there. And like Dublin crushed us in a 2014 quarterfinal as well. So we had fought to get to that semi-final stage, and we got to it in 18, and obviously Tyrone beat us by the point. And you're watching on in the All-Ireland final that day, and you're sick to the pit of your stomach, because you feel as if that was a chance that we could have been there. We could have got Monaghan to that final. We could have got the people, the county, the whole lot to Croke Park that day. And you know, it was that particular day against that Dublin team. It was a free cut at it, you know what I mean? Like, they were obviously raging hot favourites, and they went on and beat Tyrone comfortably enough that day.
Imagine what an All-Ireland final appearance would mean to Monaghan.
Yeah.
I mean, the county only has a population of about 70,000.
Less, actually, 64 or 5,000.
You're probably going to get 50% of the county's population into Croke Park.
Yeah. And if we had everybody in it, we still wouldn't fill it on our own. And that was the thing. Like, when we got to that semi-final, you felt you were close, and you could close that gap and get back and bridge the gap, and it took us 5 years to get back to another semi-final, you know, which is why last year's semi-final stung, you know, because it was an opportunity, you know, it was an opportunity big time.
So that period then, because I always feel that you overachieved because of population, club size, but I feel the group you had I just feel like you maximised everything. How big of a role is Malachy in terms of giving you that belief? From that period of 13 to 19, like, he had some run of games, like. Yeah,
Malachy was absolutely brilliant for Monaghan football.
And I'm sure Banty was too, but I just felt when Malachy came in, he had something different about him.
Yeah, well, I suppose Malachy came in at a time when that group, like we had gone from Division 1 straight through to Division 3 from 2010 to 2012. At the end of 2012 we found ourselves at the bottom in Division 3. So going into 2013 we were in Division 3 football. Malachy came in, and he just has a knack and a way with players and a group of getting the absolute best out of them. He'd have you walking on water, insofar as he'd have you thinking you're the best player in the country and the best, so he has a way of just getting the best out of players, and a really good way of communicating to players, both on a sporting level and just in a human level as well, just a really good way about him. And he got our team, we had the crux of a good team. We had been in Ulster finals in 7, we'd been in Ulster finals in 10, so there was a good crew of players there. You had the likes of Owen Lennon, Dick Clark and Vinnie Corey, Desi Moan, Paul Finlay, Tommy Freeman, all them boys were still there. So there was a good crew of players, and then you had the likes of myself and Darren Hughes and Carol O'Connell, Colin Walsh, Drew Wiley. So there was a lot of raw material there, but we needed somebody to bring it together, and Malachy came in and he got us believing. First and foremost, he got us believing that we could compete. We started winning games, and once you have a team of 30 or 35 lads that's working really hard and winning games, albeit it was only in Division 3 at the time, as a player you don't see it that way. You're beating what's in front of you, and that year Donegal were put in front of us in the Ulster final, and it was full conviction that you were going to beat them that day, and Malachy had you walking on water coming into that game. So that's the effect that he could have on you as a player and as a team,
Must have been some relief for you personally then to get that Ulster medal, that 13-1. What you gone through, from Division 3 and knitting all that together.
Well, you see, we obviously we had gone through the disappointments of losing the Ulster finals before, and Monaghan obviously hadn't won an Ulster final since '88, so it was a long time coming. You'd grown up watching Derry and Down and Donegal and all these other teams doing well, but you never grew up watching Monaghan doing well. So to put Monaghan on the map, and for younger kids in Monaghan to see their team and their county winning championships, that's massive. And that has carried on. There's been minor success, there's been under 21 success, there's been a lot of that in Monaghan since that. So
no one in Monaghan of that age group, your generation, had really had anyone to aspire to be. Like, if you think of the great names of Monaghan football, with all due respect to people who pulled the jersey on in the 90s, you can't name a single one of them.
No, well, the reality
still talk
is,
about McCarran and Nudie Hughes and Paddy Linden
and that
the McEnanies and
the 85 and the 88 team, and they were, and obviously you were 6 months old when they were winning the Ulster Championship in 88. As a youngster, I grew up. My heroes were Mickey Linden and Peter Canavan. You know what I mean, and I spent my whole childhood watching the glory years. Sam Comes North, 91, 92, 93. That's what I would have watched religiously as a youngster, because, as you say, Monaghan unfortunately were being knocked out of the championship first or second round every year. So
must also kill you to see that.
Well, I didn't know any different at the time. As a youngster, you're just following the teams that are winning.
And this is pre-qualifier.
Yeah.
So Monaghan,
one game and it's over.
I know you beat. I think 94. They drew at Cavan and beat them in a replay in Castleblaney, but by and large, you had one crack at it and you were gone.
That's it. They beat Donegal up in Ballybuffet in '95. And then again beaten after that again. So it was tough for Monaghan, and there was a lot of good footballers in Monaghan went through the net at that time and got nothing out of it. You know what I mean? And soldiered for a long time and got nothing out of it. And even right up until we won the championship, the likes of Damien Freeman and the likes of Rory Woods and John Paul Moan and these boys who soldiered for Monaghan for a long time and got nothing out of it either. To be fit to put Monaghan back into that conversation again and have youngsters wanting to wear Monaghan jerseys and wanting to be playing for Monaghan, that was a massive thing. And as you say about Malachy, he was an absolute integral part of that.
I could see it. I remember we often play in games, between league games and challenge games, and you could see it. Malachy and James, you could see they were cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, big time.
You could see your group below was so close knit.
Well, you're like a club team.
Yeah. Well, it is and as you talked about, Monaghan is a small county, so you're only picking from 29, 30 clubs, you know what I mean? So that group, that crew of players was like a club team, you know what I mean? After a win, you'd go out and the whole crew was together that day and maybe the next day or whatever the case was. So it was a really, really tight knit group. The
club scene in Monaghan, am I right in saying it's not like it is in Derry or Tyrone? there's real vicious rivalries between some of the clubs that can often hinder the progression of the inter-county team, that it isn't quite as vociferous in Monaghan. So that club feel was actually more attainable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the club championship in Monaghan is tough. It is tough and it's hard to win, you know, but it never spilled over into the dressing room, and that was one thing that in my time it never spilled over at all over the 18 years that I was there. Like, it was, once you come in and you had your Monaghan jersey on or your Monaghan top on, that was it. You were there for that and that alone. But yeah, no, that group of players, like, you had some, you talk about some great characters and some great leaders. Like, we've talked about them already. The Owen Lennons, the Vinnie Corys, the Paul Finleys, the Desies, the Vinnies. You know, they're the boys that you know, when they led, everybody else followed. You know what I mean? And it was an easy job for us as 24, 25-year-olds in that dressing, just to follow their lead. And then obviously the natural thing was for us to take it on after that.
And you win pulling up that day. That last 5 minutes at Clones must have been magic.
Yeah. And funny that,
it's won, like.
The Miners had won as well.
Yeah.
Good day.
You know, before the first Ulster title in 67 years. Wow. Like, so it was a mad day. But
could you go full bore then? Could you really go after the celebrations, knowing that you had a quarter final?
Whether you could or not, we did. Anyway.
You're good at that, eh?
Yeah, I don't know whether who made the rules on that, but we certainly done our own thing in that regard. But
what were those 2 days like?
You couldn't. Brilliant.
Sure,
Like,
that's what you do it for.
You know, that is what you do it for. Like, and you know, Monaghan hadn't tasted that. Like, so again, we went on a tour of the county on the Monday. Like, and you know, it doesn't take that long to tour the county altogether. You know,
you probably met the whole population.
But it is. Them days are magic. Like, and I think I mentioned it already. We got back to the final in 14. So we played Donegal in 13, 14, 15, and that was the final. They beat us in 14. Then we go back to it in 15, and we won by a point. And I'd say that day was nearly. The first day was as much elation. The second day was more satisfaction, and maybe got more satisfaction, enjoyment out of winning that one, because you had kept up there, you had stayed at that level, and you felt as if this is where you really belong now. You know.
But the way you won it. It was so different to 2013.
It was, yeah.
This was a 1 point, 11-10.
11-10, yeah. Like, and we were, I think, maybe 11-5 or 11-6 up in that game, and looked to be cruising, and ended up hanging on at the end. You know, Donegal came back at us, and I think Patrick McBrearty had a shot that just I'd say that much, you know.
Tight, yeah.
And there's no room for an inside forward like you to operate in. Like, your battles with Neil McGee over those 3 Ulster finals are almost mythical. And one of my great images of you is, as was your move, a very similar to the typical McBrearty move, where you're not involved in the play, but you just come around the back of it on the end of the play, and you've got maybe a metre or two of space to swing your right foot around it and stick it over the bar, and Neil McGee is almost there to get a block in, and then there's a little pat on the chest. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
You're a brave man.
That's great, though.
I was a brave man, but I had spent the previous 25 minutes wrestling with Neil on the ground. But we had some great battles over the years. And
were they good-natured battles?
They were. Like, the first time I played on Neil in the 2013 final, I wouldn't have come across him. Obviously, I'd watched him and seen him, but I hadn't met him outside of football or anything like that there. So it was very much, it's me versus you here, you know what I mean? And
so even though Donegal, and as many of the teams were by then, that's Rory Gallagher's first year in charge, Donegal are playing with 15 men behind the ball.
Yeah.
It's still you and Neil.
Yeah.
One-on-one. All week, you're marking him. Yeah. He knows he's marking you.
Yeah, and the way that game went, you knew you weren't going to be getting ball kicked into you and a chance to take your man on or anything. So it was very much a case of just trying to move him around and pull him to places that he didn't want to be. But, you know, there was, to be fair, there was no shit. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of talk out of him the first day maybe, but there was nothing that ever crossed the threshold. But I would have went on that year to play international rules with Neil in Croke Park here, and the following year as well, and became good friends with him. So over the years when we would be marking, you're nearly having the crack, as opposed to, there was no viciousness. Both men were out to do their as much as they could. Like, and after that Ulster final in 15, as I say, we spent, I don't think I touched the ball for maybe the first 20-25 minutes. You know, it was just a full-scale wrestling match for that period of time, and then I got on the ball and got a couple of scores before half time, and that one you mentioned, you know. So I suppose you were just letting him know that you were still there, you know what I mean? But again,
But he's a smile on his face. If there's a great still of that moment, and he's smiling when you're patting him on the back, you know, he's man enough to acknowledge
but
that this is a
again,
proper. But it's like Keith Higgins and James O'Donoghue in 2014
But
at
if
the
you know,
Gaelic
if you know
Grounds.
Neil, that's what he loves. Like, 'cause
Yeah,
he
he
loves
relishes that.
Yeah.
He is the press, and I agree with you. He's the aggressor, but he's not.
and even the following year, it was obviously something that Donegal talked about, because we played Donegal in the Ulster semi-final the following year in semi-final, and it ended up going to a replay as well. We drew with them in Cavan and went to a replay in Cavan. I think it was the first game, I got turned over, and 3 or 4 of them came over and, you know, tap me on the chest, like, you know. So
the analysis is good. That's
yeah. So listen, that's all a bit of crack, and I would have had plenty of good nights with Neil over the years, and plenty of battles with him over the league and things like that. There, you know, I remember playing Donegal up in Ballyshannon. Actually, it's one of the
It's a shithole.
one of life's joys. One of life's joys. One of life's joys going up to play Donegal and Ballyshannon
All hill.
in the league, you know, and ball was kicked into me, and it was kicked in high, like, and it was just an absolute sitting duck. Neil comes, bang, through the ball, and he says, "Fuck's sake, sure, you might tell them boys to kick that thing in a bit lower." You know what I mean? Just a bit of crack, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, I'd many good battles with Neil over the
It's
years.
interesting the way you talk about, you know, you took great nights out with him on those international rules tours, and could you say that about any of the Tyrone lads you faced?
I could, yeah. Like Matty Donnelly, for example, I'd be good friends with Matty. I was at his wedding there 2 or 3 months ago, and I went to college with Matty. I was on a couple of All-Star tours with him, and international rules tours as well. So yeah, 100%, and obviously Richie as well. Yeah, no, you could. Now there's a lot of them I wouldn't be as close to, as friendly with. But
Yeah, Matty Donnelly is usually operating a bit further away from you though, and I'm talking. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the usual suspects. Some of the great defenders of their defenders of their time.
Well, look at this. No, I wouldn't have that same relationship with a lot of them. But again, that's in fairness, the likes of Ronan McNamee, I would have had a lot of tough battles with him over the years, and anytime you'd see him or anytime you'd meet him, it would always be, again, there's nothing ever really over the top. You know what I mean? Players go out do what they have to do.
Yeah.
None of them would have been as bad as Exhibit A here.
He was telling us about a little battle he's had where you got him a black card.
Clonus, was it?
Yeah. I went on him for.
You tell us first.
I think it was midway through second half, and I think I pulled you, and he just looked at me. He goes, "You have a bit to go yet." And I went off, and I said the steam was coming out of my ears. I said, "He's after doing me badly."
Yeah, I think you were after maybe a holiday and maybe
I
back
was
training that long, and
there's a bit of putting around the waist. But, I didn't want to be looking at Manzi in the league game and Clones. But it's funny you say that, like, you know, like in the international rules, like, how did you, like, I obviously was with you on some of the tours, and I found them brilliant from the point of view is that you're like, we're kicking lumps at each other for months, and then you come in and it's a funny old environment.
It is, yeah. It's surprising how, I suppose, easily lads sort of pull together or gel together, you know, and maybe there's still hang-ups in the back of boys' heads, you know, knowing that we're going to be playing using the first round of the championship. And that stage, the first round draws had been made and things like that as well. So boys have obviously got these things going in their heads. I know was it the first year we were in Australia? Was it 14?
14 in Melbourne and Perth, yeah.
And I think that the Donegal-Tyrone rivalry was quite hot at that stage. You know, they had been hopping off each other for a couple of years, like, and you could probably see that a wee bit, that they weren't just taking a step back from each other in any capacity at all, like.
No quarters given.
No, but the international rules, I loved it. Like, I thought it was brilliant. Like, it's you know, maybe people would say that it's not that enjoyable to watch, or it's quite stop-startish, but as a player to play in, it's really, really enjoyable. Like, it's just, you're going out, you're playing, and I suppose the skills of the game are rewarded. You know, the good passing, the catching, the kicking, things like that there. But
I thought the era that you guys played international rules is the style of the game then is one of the reasons why it doesn't exist anymore, because that was probably the most sanitized version, going all the way back to the 80s and the compromise rules and the 90s to the stuff that went on in the mid 2000s under Sean Boylan and Peter Canavan and Graham Garrity, been just
And I
hammered
think
and
it goes back to
poleaxed
that
and
the 2005, was it the 2005 edition where Graham
he was
Geraghty
knocked
got.
out.
Backed out, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it stopped then for a period of time just because it had got out of hand, and I suppose
But it turned out that's what we loved.
yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
you know, it was so gladiatorial.
I'm not sure I would have loved it as
Either
much.
would I.
No, the players didn't want to be involved. And why would you want to be involved in
Yeah.
like there's the great McGeaney
Yeah.
quote, you know, if you want to play football, you say you want to play football.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
have
But
a
you're,
box, you
you're talking
say
about threshold, like you're on a bit threshold of defenders, like that got to a threshold.
Oh, that was dirt.
It was just beyond.
Yeah,
you
it
know.
was.
but that's what the crowd wanted. And
I remember being in Croke Park for them games. Any time that was in Croke Park, I was always there, like, because
it was gripping.
Yeah.
as a youngster. But even as a youngster, to go up to Croke Park and see all your favourite players in one place at one time, and you're supporting them all, you know, on one day, it's just brilliant. Like,
And there was scuffles breaking out all over the field,
Yeah.
even though there was an extra referee on the pitch.
Yeah.
The two of them couldn't keep an eye on what was happening. So before the ball is thrown in, there's at least 8 different man-on-man wrestling matches
and you
have
can be
already
sure
broken out.
Canavan was stuck in the middle of one of them.
So it was far more about the football around 2014, 15, 16.
Yeah.
It was.
And that
But
was-
it did go hot and heavy
there
in
was,
1 or 2 years.
there was, like, I mean, as sanitized as they say it was, like, there was still off
Oh,
the
there
ball
was-
stuff
there was-
going
there
on.
was-
And
there
they
was-
remind you too, like, they're
Yeah, like,
aggressive enough.
they're-
Like real nasty stuff.
They are like
They're in your face.
Yeah, they were. Now, in fairness, once it was off the field, like, and then the nights
Sound.
out and things that they were 100%, and we had good nights after. But when they were on the field, they were as
Hercules as they got,
as
yeah.
arrogant as you wanted them to be. Now,
And they're physically bigger usually. I know
Yeah,
this.
you
The
can see
profile
that.
of the AFL player is more aligned now to the modern intercounty
Yeah,
footballer than
yeah.
it probably was in the 80s and 90s, where they were bigger, taller, more muscular. Whereas that's a much quicker game now that's played over the ground than it used to be. Much
and
like Gaelic football.
Yeah, AFL has changed to that degree as well, like as you say. So I suppose it naturally changed with the international rules as well. It became more of a footballing spectacle. But I remember a couple of different incidents now, and thank God I was standing on the outside looking in at them. That's all I'd
So
say.
who would these have involved?
Well, Murphy was stuck in the most of them anyway.
But he was the big one to take it.
Yeah,
So,
and like
yeah.
he would have been a target for them, Michael. Like, you know what I mean?
No shrinking violet though.
No, and he
himself.
certainly didn't take a step back.
Well,
anyway.
what we're all going to do, like, since Connor's more or less confirmed retirement, we're looking at the international rules retired team now. So Murphy, McManus,
The
myself,
Masters.
do you know? So we'll collate a few.
Yeah,
more
I was
people.
kind of hanging on for one more test. That's all I was.
Well, myself and Lee got something to eat a bit earlier, and I asked him, "Look, can you stand out memories of those international rules tours that you were on with Manzi?" And he said, "I can't remember any of them." I'd say you played as hard off the field as you did on it. Did you?
Oh, jeez, we did. Yeah,
jeez.
it
Even
was-
the one I even know in Australia, the ones even in Dublin. Like, I tell you who the worst ones are. Like, we be training on a Friday up in Castlelock. You'd have a tough old session, and they have a planned skill session on a Saturday. But there'd be no sign of pork choice or derriche.
No.
They'd be like, fuck those skill sessions. The only thing we're handling on a Friday night is a beer or two.
Yeah, and if you'd have seen them in Australia for the whatever it was 21 days, yeah, they enjoyed the trips as much as anyone.
They're good because, like, I think they're important as well, because you go in with the expectation of, you know, a bit of hatred, like, around your rivals, but once you get to know them as human beings and what they do away from the kind of, and that's what I found, even getting to know yourself and a lot of them, is that, geez, these boys are actually okay, like, you know, and you can talk about the game and been sanitized, but I think as a collective to actually get to step into the room with the best in the game and to understand why they're the best, I that's what I love the most, and the crack just flowed from it naturally. It wasn't a forced thing.
No, it wasn't. And what you realise, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take long to realise it, that they're all the same as you. Like, you know, all the boys are the same as you. They're all out fighting their corner during the summer and doing their bit for their team, and it's the same when you strip it right back to club football. Like, you know, that when boys go back out onto the club field, they're going to do what they have to do to get over the line against you, and that's it. And it's the same at county level, you know. And there's sometimes that you think you have this hatred for somebody or whatever the case is, and once you strip it back, they're just good lads. Like,
Talk to me about the big moments, the clutch moments, because Lee, you'll agree, there's Cillian O'Connor was probably the man for those moments for Mayo. I'm thinking of the Dean Rock score at the end of the Tyrone game in 2019. The right man in the right place at that time. Last year's All-Ireland quarter-final, you're a point down on injury time to Armagh. Injury time in extra time, I think. And the vibe and the feel is very obvious. Get the ball into McManus's hands. Even though you're already in the twilight of your career, you've played the full game which was, as we mentioned earlier with those numbers, a rarity for you over the last couple of seasons. So you must be wrecked
Well,
at this stage.
I had only come on in that game. I came on. I didn't start the quarterfinal.
Sorry, the semi-final you played the full game.
The full game in the semi-final.
So you're fresh enough. So at that
fresh
point.
enough. Yeah, you're fresh enough. I came on maybe 5 minutes into the second half, so I hadn't played the full game. And
But you have to score.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be on you, isn't it? Like a lot of players might hide in that moment where you go looking for the ball, you win the free, you stick the free over, goes to penalties, you score both your penalties. I mean, the rest is history. Yeah. But that was just one example of so many times in your career that you demanded the ball in the big moment. Was that always your makeup?
Well,
because who wants the ball in those situations? Because you're going to be the guy. Con was the same in that Galway game. Conor O'Callaghan went looking for it, kicked one, kicked the other wide, but he was looking for the ball.
But that's I suppose you're seen as maybe one of the leaders in the group or one of the leaders in the team, and to me, you want to be that person that the team goes to or the team looks to get you out of a hole, and you want to test yourself. You want to be in the position where, right, I can try and fix this, or I can solve this problem, or I can hit the free, or I can stand up and try. I suppose that's why you do all the training. That's why you spend the time on the practice on the pitch after training or before training or down doing your own kicking sessions, putting yourself in that position. Like as you grew up out in the back field, you'd have been running the commentary to yourself. It's the last minute and he kicks it and it's over the bar. And now you've put yourself in that position. Now you're probably, I think, I can't remember who I seen quoting it one day. Might have been Sean O'Shea. I'm not exactly sure who it was. Saying you grow up, pretend you're in Croke Park. When you're in Croke Park, you pretend you're at home. You know that. But it's you want to be in that moment. Like.
Yeah, he said that after that free against Dublin in 2022.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, wasn't it?
It's funny, Connor, like, I suppose because you are that bit older, you don't get those moments too often. So you want to be the person. They're the moments that you're not going to get many opportunities anymore. Like, I'm not talking.
No, I know that. Yeah, but even in general over the years, like you don't come up, but that's why you're there. That's why you want to pit yourself against the best defenders. That's why you want to pit yourself against the best teams to be fit to stand up in them moments and deliver. And I suppose they're the one that's challenging yourself. Like that's to me that's why you do it. That's why you go to Cloughan 3 or 4 times a week. That's why you go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. That's why you go kicking on your own once or twice a week, is because when them opportunities arise, you want to step forward and try and deliver for your team. Like you wouldn't want anybody else to be doing it.
There was a good fist pump after as well, I believe, to the Hogan side, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't normally do any of them.
Well, you mentioned Peter Canavan was one of your heroes growing up.
But like, for example,
that free in 05.
And that free in 05 was actually, it's funny how your mind thinks it wasn't in my head at the time, but because I wasn't starting that game, you're thinking before the game, how am I going to affect this game when I come in, and you're visualising things, and that was one thing that had come into my head. It's like Canavan, I think he came on that day in the semi-final.
So you were thinking, that just came to my head there, you were thinking of Canavan
not
while sitting on the bench?
No, before the game, like the day or two before, you're not starting the game.
Starting, right.
You're thinking about how can you affect this game, and you're trying to talk about visualising. It's not that I sit down and visualise, but your mind just wanders all the time. And it was something that I was thinking about, like, right, Canavan didn't start that All-Ireland semi-final, but he still came on and kicked the winner. That's the sort of stuff you're playing over in your head, and you want to put yourself in that position. You want to be the player that the team looks to try and get the team over the line. And
by not starting was that something you just dealt with naturally then because of injuries and everything, just game management?
Listen,
I
would have obviously had a conversation with Vinny before the game, and and listen, if you asked him, he'd say the same thing. I want to be playing. Like it's just that's human nature, and any sportsman or any player or in any team that tells you that he's content sitting on the bench, he's telling you lies. Like,
But he's obviously managed it perfectly. Like if you don't start, maybe you win it in 70 minutes, but you're there for the whole of extra time.
I suppose that was his argument to me before it started. You know what I mean?
And you wouldn't have been there to take 2 penalties.
He comes over to me and tells me, "Well, I told you so." You know what I mean?
Well, he told him because obviously started for the Dublin game. And what a performance that was.
So listen, but I suppose you had your confidence was high going into that game. You had obviously you'd got a couple of scores against Armagh. The penalties had gone your way against Armagh as well. So your confidence is up coming into the Dublin game. And again, it's an All-Ireland semi-final. You just do whatever you have to do to try and get yourself and your body through it. Like so. But yeah, no, the moments are something that you always want to be stuck in the middle of, like, you know.
Do you think lads like yourself are a dying breed? Like we've mentioned it before, I've been on All-Star tours with you, and you're sitting down having a couple of pints with the journalists, you're sitting down having a couple of pints with the Monaghan boys, with the rest of the inter-county guys. You just seem to be relaxed in anyone's company. You've never said no to an interview. You've always just been happy to speak your mind and chat to various people. And more people nowadays are being more and more guarded, say less and less. It's why Porry Joyce's interview 13 minutes before throw-in last Saturday evening was so refreshing. After halfway through the Galway warm-up, he's there chatting to Aisling O'Reilly on GA Go. I just thought that was incredible to watch. Even though Porry didn't say anything overly insightful, he's not going to that close to throw-in.
Paddy Morgan did one before the game at the weekend too.
Exactly. Paddy Morgan spoke to Colin Parkinson in the days before, and fair play to Jim McGuinness. And maybe Jim McGuinness in his previous version,
that happen,
20-goal manager, wouldn't have let that happen.
Yeah.
But you've always been relaxed enough to be able to just back yourself to not say something stupid and just chat.
Yeah,
to
well, I
whoever.
suppose that's the key thing is, like, listen, you're always conscious, I suppose, when you're talking to whoever it is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from the media. You're always conscious just that you're not going to give any team or anybody a reason to leverage you, or, you know, say something daft that's going to be
that they can stick in the dressing room.
You know, and again,
has every manager ever, in your experience, stuck something in the dressing room?
But it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? But it might come out in a team talk or something like that. There, you're always conscious of not. But I was also at the same time, I was always conscious of just, I suppose, trying to be yourself, you know, throughout as best you possibly could, and whether that was having a pint with whoever on an All-Star tour, or, you know, I always enjoyed the crack with the lads on the All-Stars and the media and Cliff and a few of the boys there that you know, as lively as you get, you know what I mean? So I
see Dave's phone.
Well, Micheál Clifford, if he's listening, he'll love that he's been name checked by the great Conor McManus in the podcast today.
A couple of good days out with Micheál now. He's a good man for a song now. So
he is, yeah. No, he's some crack. You wouldn't want to be in an All-Star tour without him.
It's a good point though. It's so monetized now. It's like we don't get this like freedom from players. Like it's so stripped back, and I feel that's what takes away the good from the game and the players. It's not even you're trying to promote yourself. It's just you're answering a couple of questions. And you know, it's not like.
But you were part of a Mayo setup that was really guarded.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
And a lot of that was down to James Horan. I think James was, maybe paranoia is the wrong word, but James
I think
was
Mayo
very
Mania
wary of what. Okay, so James just trying to keep a lid on
bits
on the hype,
because again the hype when we were involved with Dublin, that the hype was just beyond different level, like, you know. So it was more Mayo Mania along with then the media aspect on top of it as well. So that kind of probably contributed. But in terms of the grand scheme of stuff, like, there's nothing to learn from player talking. I mean, absolutely nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Particularly not close to a game. No one is ever
but
going to say
even
something stupid.
players don't even read it. You know what I mean? That's the other side of it. Like, I know coming into a game, you're not reading what, if I'm playing Mayo next week, I'm not reading what Lee Keegan has to say about Monaghan, because what's he saying anyway? It's only nonsense. You know what I mean? So you're never going around hoping for news or hoping for any information. As I say, no player's going to come out and say
tactics or from, players.
It's now listen, I suppose you can understand managers, you know, and trying to protect things a wee bit, you know, and maybe some of the lesser experienced players could come out and say something, and you know, but by and large, there's nothing in a lot of it. You know what I mean? There's nothing in a lot of it. Like,
I want to finish things up by just asking you about that era of Monaghan football. Like, if you'd been born 10 years earlier, you might have poured your heart and soul into it, as some of those boys did, the JP Moans of this world, and got, apart from some memories, nothing to show for it, and almost been like a laughing stock, and, you know, the whipping boys of Ulster football. You've given everything you possibly could, physically and emotionally, to the Monaghan inter-county setup. But in your career, you were born at a time that coincided with, outside of the late 20s and early 30s, and that brilliant Monaghan group that won 3 Ulster championships in 79, 85 and 88.
Yeah.
This was the golden era of Monaghan football that you've come through. How grateful are you for that?
Some of the best players to ever pull on a Monaghan jersey, I was lucky enough to play with them. You know what I mean? That's the reality. Like, and as you say, just blessed to be born at the time, coming into a team of players, coming into it at the right time, you know, at the right the right age profile of players, like the likes, as I talk about Owen Lennon, like he was our captain in 2013, and what a leader he was for Monaghan football, like, and he's still somebody, if you meet him today, you if he says something, you listen. Vinnie Curry, the same, you know what I mean, and he's gone on to prove that by probably taking the Monaghan job when there was no big queue of people looking for it, and he himself,
short list of one.
Yeah, he himself probably didn't even want it at the time either. He probably would have had himself managing Monaghan maybe down the line. You know, that the rhetoric out there was that this Monaghan team, we're after talking about it there, that you're talking about Monaghan in transition. Vinny takes us over at a time when not many want us. We're supposed to be going through transition, and with 6 minutes to go in All-Ireland semi-final, you have Dublin level, and you're there, you're right where you want to be. Now it shows the quality of Dublin that they went on and end up beating us by maybe it was 6 points or whatever it was. But the likes of Vinnie Curry, the likes of Owen Lennon, Paul Finlay, Dick Clerk, and Desi Moan, Tommy Freeman, Damien Freeman, some of them boys, best players that you've ever pulled on them on in jersey. Like, so as you say, absolutely blessed to come along at a time when I did, and also the likes of a few of the younger boys coming behind me, the likes of Colin Walsh and Kieran Duffy and Fintan Kelly and Drew Wiley, Ryan Wiley, boys that have emptied themselves for Monaghan as well. Like, some of them boys retired 2 and 3 years ago, and they're 2 and 3 years younger than me because their bodies just didn't allow them to go any further. But when they were there, they just emptied out. Like, so,
on a similar vein, do you worry for the future of the Monaghan senior football team? The short-term future.
Listen,
it looks bleak from the outside looking in.
From the outside looking in, it probably does. You know what I mean? And I talked about it. Your reasoning for coming back this year is you got to a semi-final last year and you feel that you can kick on. And before the year starts, you lose Carl Gallagher to the Australian rules. You lose Conor Boyle, who just decided to step away. He took a year away from the Monaghan setup. You lose Rory for the whole National League because of the NFL. Like, so we went from having lost no players to any other sport to losing one to the NFL and one to the AFL for the whole of the league. You know what I mean?
Darren, the early championship.
And then you lose Darren to an injury. Like, Kieran Duffy was injured. Carl O'Connell was injured. Stephen O'Hanlon was injured. Desi Ward was injured. Like, we played Galway the last day without Carl O'Connell, Darren Hughes, Desi Ward and Kieran Duffy. And we hit the crossbar. If the ball goes into the net, chances are you win that game. Now, there's no guarantees. You'll always feel as if you could win them games, but it's not as bleak as I think, looking from the outside in. If I fully believe if we were to have all our players on any given day, Monaghan can compete with anybody. Now, outside of Monaghan, people may or may not want to believe that, but I think if Monaghan has everybody there and everybody available, they can compete. Now, as you say, listen, you're potentially going to lose a couple of lads out of the dressing, but that's okay. Monaghan have lost players from the dressing room before, and they'll lose more.
Will you be one of
them? Still hanging on to that one.
Can't leave him one of the greats in that.
But yeah, listen, it's I suppose the worst has happened, from the point of view. Now, you're obviously saying that if you were to slide again, you end up in the Tailteann Cup. There's an opportunity for that group now. Like, Division 1 was probably, the way our panel and our squad turned out this year, it was probably the wrong place for us to be this year, because it's a hugely punishing place to be if you're not, like, most teams are nearly very close to full out all the time. Like, we played Derry, and I think it was the third league game of the National League this year, and we both were knocked out in the All-Ireland semi-final stage last year. Of the 15 that started for Monaghan that day, 5 started this All-Ireland semi-final that started that day against Derry. Of them 5, 2 of them were gone with hamstrings before half-time. Derry had 13 of the 15 that started, and they absolutely wiped the floor with us, So when you're in Division 1 and you're playing at that level, you need to be as close to full out, because the league has become the days of finding your feet in the first 2 or 3 games, and that's gone. Like, it's you're all out for the league
certainly
now.
For the Monaghan's and Roscommons of this world.
There's too much depth and class in Division 1 now. Like,
so
you get found out fast.
So it's a tough place to be blooding players and to try and find your feet. So Monaghan's in Division 2 next year. It's definitely a more forgiving place for a lot of lads to find their feet. Some more men can come in. Some lads have a year or 2 under the belt now. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Monaghan have been in sticky spots before, and they'll pull their way out of them.
There's no better team than getting out of them for the last 10 years.
Well, we've managed to get ourselves into a lot of them, that's for sure.
There's plenty to learn from there.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bleak enough note, so we can't finish on that. Let's finish on a high. What, out of all the moments, the Ulster titles, the All-Stars, the international tours, the All-Star tours, the big wins at Croker, if you had to pinpoint one moment that was just the pinnacle, the peak, the moment that you savour the most, what might that one be?
Yeah, there's been a lot, to be fair. Now, listen, there's never as many as you wanted. Like, ultimately, you wanted to get up the steps of the Hogan stand. That's what we all strive for. That's what you're all gearing towards and pushing every day to get there. We didn't get there. We didn't. I still would have felt if we'd have got ourselves to an All-Ireland final, just to give the county and to give the people of Monaghan that experience of being involved in that 2 or 3 week build-up and just allow them to dare to dream, that sort of that didn't work out. But there's been some super days, like the day we went down the Super 8s in 2018 was brilliant. Like, we went to Croke Park and beat Kildare, we took Kerry to Clonus, had them beaten, the
Lake Cliff show,
and leave it to us to find a way to mess it up, but then we had to go down to beat Galway. Went down and beat Galway. The fans were on the field before the game was over. Days like that will always, you'll always remember. You know what I mean? But I would say probably, and I think I've mentioned it already, 2013 and 2015. To me, 2015 was more enjoyable purely because of the fact that we did it again. The first year was pure elation. The second day was, this is where we belong. And as I say, we had been in Division 1, and that group of players stayed in Division 1 until this year. You know what I mean? So they fought their way from Division 3 to Division 1, won 2 Ulster titles. And listen, unfortunately, you look back at it and you'll feel as if we left a couple behind us as well, and a couple of All-Ireland quarterfinals behind us. That's sport. That's just the nature of it. You just have to keep coming back, keep looking for more. And I suppose that 15 day would probably be the highlight of it.
But there's, in the history of the Senior Football Championship, 3 footballers have scored more points than you. It's astonishing. No Monaghan players won more All-Stars than you. It's been one of the great careers, probably unrivaled. He could be sitting here in 100 years' time. There mightn't be a career like it. I think over the last hour, you've just about managed to remain officially as a current Monaghan senior footballer. But honestly, reading between the lines, it sounds like you're done.
Yeah, look, it's reality has to, you just can't keep going forever. If I didn't have a shitty hip, for want of a better word, I'd there's no doubt that I'd go back in a heartbeat. But I do, and as I say, you have to just face reality. So as I said, I'll get the club season out of the way, and I'll probably put it to bed sooner rather than later after.
Keep the €5 in your pocket. That's an effort.
Well, we'll leave it. Current Monaghan senior footballer Conor McManus. It's been a privilege. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Dave.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Leroy.
So there you have it, Conor Manzi McManus. What a man.
I don't know. It's funny, like we're similar age, but I feel like I'm a super fan.
Yeah, there was definitely a banger fanboy off the two of us talking to Conor.
I think there's that. I think what he's done over his career is just amazing. But what I really love about Manzi is just the way he carries himself. Never changed his personality or his ways, and as good as he has been, and he'll go down as one of the absolute greats, I just think he's so gracious in terms of how he talks about the game, his positivity. Just one of the top guys that you could actually come across and have a chat with, and he'd fill you up with some of the good stories he had there.
Yeah, you really feel when you're chatting to him, and I have been lucky enough to speak to him a good bit over the years, that you're in the presence of greatness. Like, this is one of the all-time top 10 forwards in the history of the game.
Yeah, and irrespective of his decision, I think that's important to say. I just think it was summed up so well post Monaghan Gaelic game. The appreciation fans had, not just Monaghan supporters, but Gaelic supporters, and the outpour of messages on social media about Conor McManus. It just sums him up. What an absolute iconic figure he is. From a county like Monaghan to do what he has done and create that aura about them, I think that speaks so much about the guy in terms of greatness.
One thing that didn't come up in the chat was the point against Tyrone. And I would assume if you're listening to this podcast, you know the point that we're talking about. I think it was the 2018 championship.
Yeah.
in Omagh.
Omagh.
And this is one of the all-time great scores in the history of the Ulster Championship.
Side.
She's no right to take it on. But anybody who doesn't know what score we're talking about, get onto YouTube and have a look at it. It's just jaw-dropping.
I think that's important, though. I think his highlight reels is just jaw-dropping. You watch it and you're thinking, how do you even think of shooting from there? Not alone score it. Like his reels is just off the charts.
It's not even audacious though when Conor McManus takes on a shot from there. It's like, well, this is what he does.
If me or Tucker were getting whipped.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is what Clifford does. This is what Peter Kahneman did. Morris Fitz, he's up there with Gooch. All these boys, like the great forwards of the game of the last 25 years and surely beyond as well. To win 3 All-Stars, I don't want to say this disrespectfully, for a Monaghan man to win 3 All-Stars is quite astonishing. When he mentioned the population of Monaghan, 60,000 people, if they got to an All-Ireland final, pretty much the entire county wouldn't fill Croke Park.
No, 29 clubs.
It's ridiculous what he and that group of players have done. And like I said at the start, when he said, I owe Monaghan everything, never has an inter-county footballer or hurler owed his county less than Conor McManus. And maybe that's where we leave it.
I think that sums up.
Yeah, pretty much. What a man. And it was an honour to have Conor with us for the time that he gave to us. That's it for the latest episode of the Square Ball podcast powered by William Hill. Do get in touch with us. You can get in touch via our comment section on YouTube, where you can watch all of the interviews we've done so far, or wherever you get your own podcast. You please write, leave a review, get in touch with us on Twitter or Instagram as well. We'd love to hear from you. Any suggestions you might have for any future episodes as well, do get in touch with us. Next week, we will be speaking to pretty much was possibly the last of the dying breed, a genuine dual star, Podge Collins, who played hurling and football with Clare with such great distinction for so long and retired in December of last year. He is going to be in the hot seat for next week's episode. But for now, from the William Hill sponsored Square Ball pod, that's it from myself and Lee. We'll speak to you in a week's time.